On today's show, I'm joined by Doug Norrie of Locked On Nets to talk about the frontcourt acquisitions in Brooklyn, trades to move off DeAndre Jordan, and more. It's all coming up. Stay tuned. Here it is.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Locked On NBA. I am your Monday host, Josh Lloyd, and we're going to talk Brooklyn Nets. Today's show is brought to you by SweatBlock. If you've got one of those, that embarrassing problem of too much sweat, excessive sweating, hyperhidrosis, we know there can be a real problem, but SweatBlock is your answer. It is doctor created and doctor recommended. It is stronger than most clinical antiperspirants out there. You might have even seen it advertised on the Rachel Ray show where they tested it through the work of firefighters, and it came out fantastic. And what you do with SweatBlock, get the wipes. Before you go to bed, wipe your underarms, wake up the next morning, have a shower, go off to work, go off to school, and you're covered for up to 7 days. Maybe it's twice a week you put it on, but it's not an everyday thing. And this gives you amazing protection from that embarrassing issue of too much sweat. SweatBlock also gives you the dry shirt guarantee. If SweatBlock doesn't keep you dry, you get your money back. And you can save 20% by going to sweatblock.com and using the promo code LOCKEDON. You can also buy it at Amazon. You can also buy it at CVS. But if you can save 20%, why wouldn't you do it? So go to sweatblock.com and use our promo code LOCKEDON to get yourself some SweatBlock to alleviate those embarrassing sweating issues. All right, let's bring him in now. The host of the Locked On Nets podcast, Doug Norrie, is here to talk to me because Brooklyn's been pretty busy over the last few days, week or so, making some moves, some signings, some trades. Doug, they have brought in Paul Millsap. They have brought back LaMarcus Aldridge, fresh off his retirement, and they've also traded DeAndre Jordan, who we know I had you on Locked On Fantasy a week and a half ago. We said, maybe it was going to be tough for them to be able to get off of that DeAndre Jordan deal, and we'll see exactly what happens, but they did it. He's gone. Let's start with the guys coming in. Yeah, Paul Millsap, I think, was probably the best free agent still left out on the market, so they bring him in, and then they also get the returning LaMarcus Aldridge. So how does all this fit together? Because we saw, Millsap took a step back, obviously, last season. Aldridge wasn't quite himself, but they are still really valuable rotation players. So how are they fitting in with the existing combination of Blake Griffin and Nick Claxton there?
Yeah, so, I think it's a really bad sign for Claxton, probably, I would say. That one is something we'll have to wait and see how it plays out. I can't see how he gets any more playing time. In terms of how it works out now going forward, LaMarcus Aldridge, it's going to be funny how they end up starting with the minutes because Blake sort of earned the minutes at the end by being so, frankly, good in the playoffs and for what he ended up being, which is a very different role than he had played for the rest of his career. But before that, Aldridge had been the starter because they had sort of promised him the starter minutes and that enticed him to not sign with Miami. And then he went and came with the Nets and then obviously left with a heart condition. And then Millsap, from what the reporting has said, has been told he has a chance to compete for starting minutes too. So it's a little bit of a logjam here, and it's the exact kind of logjam you want. So it's great for the Nets on a team level, and everyone seems all the veterans they're all going to probably play it the correct way here in terms of messaging, but it all of a sudden became very crowded around really quality guys that are, on the downside of their career, but for what the Nets need them for, it's a really crowded situation that makes the Nets, frankly, really, really good.
Yeah, it does. Like, these guys are all, obviously really good players who have taken a step back, but still really good players. I guess the concern is that, Aldridge, Griffin, Millsap, and of course Claxton, their best position is all at center. But right. Some of them, you would know LaMarcus Aldridge through his career as being a power forward. Same with Blake Griffin, same with Paul Millsap. But at this point in their career, they're all centers. But so how much do you think we're going to see these guys actually playing together? How many Griffin Aldridge front courts are we going to get? Because it's going to mean a reduction in minutes for someone like a Joe Harris or perhaps a Patty Mills or last year's breakout player in Bruce Brown, because you can't fit everyone in to get those big minutes. So are we going to see much of these combination old guy 4-5s playing together?
Man, it's really tough to play some of these guys together, I think, because They are good at the small ball 5 thing, but when you ask one, I think asking one of them, Millsap probably has the best chance to play. I would say it's unlikely. I think we see Blake and Aldridge play together. Millsap has a chance to probably play with them because he's a little more versatile on the defensive end, be able to guard 4s. And so if anything, he's the guy that will probably could play some 4 with the other guys playing the 5. I don't see it as much. It's hard for me to picture it as much with Blake and Aldridge just because they're a little bit plodding. They're a little bit slow. They need to be in the paint at this point on a defensive assignment, and switching them on the 4s is sort of problematic. So I can see Millsap working his way in there, but we also saw his Denver run where he was basically out of the rotation by the time the real minutes came calling, because that other switching stuff was becoming increasingly difficult for him as well. So I don't, it's funny. I actually don't think they're going to overlap a ton, just as a guess, or this early in the process. But what that's also going to mean, so I don't think it comes at the cost of like Joe Harris. Like, I don't think Joe Harris loses in this situation. Bruce Brown, maybe, because he's a little tougher to play with these guys, or maybe not because he can defend. He's pretty versatile defender. But in terms of the 3 of them playing together, that's a little bit harder for me to picture, because there's some real defensive concerns when you start doing that, because they're just not as switchable as you probably want them to be, especially if you're asking any of those guys to play the 4 for a lot of minutes.
It is going to be interesting. Like, I don't think anyone can argue that this makes the Nets better. Like, getting these guys, who you don't have to rely upon LaMarcus Aldridge to be a 25% usage guy playing 35 minutes as he was 2 years ago in San Antonio. Like, we don't need Blake Griffin to run the offense like he did in Detroit 2 years ago. You don't need Millsap to be an all-defensive level player that he was 2-3 years ago. It provides that depth for them, and these guys will have to fight for minutes. They have to be aware, I guess, that some nights they won't even play. There'll be some nights where we go, well, we're just going to run Blake and LaMarcus exclusively at center, and then Nick and Paul, you don't play. And it's a challenge for Steve Nash, but it is a good problem, like you said. But the other thing that I think is really interesting about this, I don't think we need to talk too much about the guys coming in the DeAndre Jordan trade, because I don't expect Jahlil Okafor to stay on this team, and maybe Sekou Doumbouya does not stay on this team either. We'll talk about that in reference to the deal that sent DeAndre Jordan out. Now, there was speculation that DeAndre Jordan was signed to that 4-year, $40 million deal because it was a package deal alongside Kyrie, Irving, and Kevin Durant, and they're all good friends. And then the next reporting came out that Kenny Atkinson was fired because he wouldn't start DeAndre Jordan. And then we saw the very next game, when Jacques Vaughn took over, amazingly, DeAndre Jordan started over Jared Allen. What a huge coincidence that must have been. But now is a KD and Kyrie just like said, yeah, look, the dude's washed. Like, we're okay if he moves on. Like, what's the change in thought process here when so much seemed to be geared towards, no, we need to look after DeAndre. You need to give him these minutes. We need to do all this. And now he's like, dumped out for players who probably don't stay on the roster.
Yeah, so I think from on a high level, I think that DeAndre Jordan, on a financial level, is a huge winner in this, because the other 2 guys took, this is just reported, this isn't even speculated on, that the other 2 guys basically took paid discounts so that he could get paid on that initial contract, right? So he got probably more than he would have gotten in some other open market spots.
Oh, he wasn't on the yeah, no one can argue that.
Yeah, on the way in. But on the way out, I think the fact that it's been 2 regimes now between the Jacques Vaughn, well, the Kenny Atkinson / Vaughn, plus like now the Steve Nash and Mike D'Antoni group that kind of came in, and by the end of the year had figured out that, hey, because he started a ton of games last year. He started 43 games last year. So it wasn't like that he wasn't given an opportunity. He played a ton last season, and it just wasn't working out. And by the end of it, it was clearly on an organizational level, everyone finally agreed we cannot play him anymore. Right? He did not play the rest of the regular season. He didn't step off the bench in the playoffs. It was over, right? So I think even if you're Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, and frankly in DeAndre Jordan too, they have to look at this and say, hey, look, this is a basketball decision now, right? Every opportunity was given. You're not the coaches. This isn't Little League with the coach's son where we need to make sure he gets to play because we want to keep everyone happy. This is a situation where on a basketball level, it just wasn't making any sense anymore. And that combined with the money, because they walked off his remaining $20 million, but it ended up being something like $47 million in cap savings to it wasn't just the remaining $20 million. They got way under the hard cap by getting rid of him. So I think just on like every single level, it made sense to have him go. So I think from that point of view, there's been no part of this where there's been any pushback from anybody else. It's been known. They've been trying to shop him forever. They finally found a suitor. They had to attach a ton of second-round picks to be able to get it done and cash. But I don't know, on an organizational level, I think the writing was so far on the wall. He just hadn't played. He just wasn't playing anymore. So at that point, literally, what's the point of having him around?
Getting rid of him without having to buy him out or take any sort of cap hit there, I think is a huge win for Brooklyn, and we'll see what happens. I don't think DeAndre Jordan's going to have any real impact as a member of the Lakers when he signs there. I think, as you said, he's cooked. He's been looked bad for 2 years, and I don't think he's going to have any impact over there in Los Angeles. But Doug, any Brooklyn Nets stuff that goes down, you're going to have it covered for us all over on the Locked On Nets podcast, so subscribe to that wherever you find podcasts. Doug, thanks for jumping on Locked On NBA with me.
Thanks so much.
That does it for today's show. Don't forget, hit the subscribe button, hit the thumbs up, leave your comments down below. We'll be back with more shows later on today. I'll see you guys later. Bye.